excited to achieve it. You're going to learn about the 5 phases of NSA, the 5 phases of adverse spinal cord tension. Daniel David Palmer, D.D. Palmer, said that molecular oscillation is the basis of consciousness, and tension, distortion of the neuroskeleton, is responsible for alteration of the vibrational wave, which now is called, in modern science, an acoustic wave that travels to the nervous system. If you alter the acoustic wave due to change in tension in the spinal cord, you alter the consciousness expressed, including the morphology of the cells of the body. And according to D.D. Palmer, the purpose of chiropractic care was to help establish a normal tone, not too much, not too little, which allow for normal function and for allow the individual to progress in their life physically, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. D.D. Palmer's concepts were furthered by B.J. Palmer, who said there's 2 types of spinal cord tension patterns. One, a tension at the IVF, intervertebral foramina, due to vertebral misplacement, and that's associated with that type of subluxation called single effect pressure. In the 1920s, Palmer said that's not the major effect in spinal cord. That's not the major thing to be addressed. Most of the time, they're compensatory to a primary subluxation he called multiple spinal cord tension patterns. And what he described was as the spinal cord is elongated, as it does, it causes multiple pressures in the spinal cord. And in the late 1920s, he developed instrumentation to actually, with thermocouple instruments, to measure temperature variations along the spinal cord, and in 1931 introduced subluxation-specific adjustment-specific with the HIO, the hole-in-one, the one place that a force could be introduced to be able to help the body to self-correct or self-regulate all the multiple spinal cord tension patterns. This was the basis of my starting my journey, looking at how can I find out where are the spinal cord tension patterns. I started out as an upper cervical practitioner that worked with the atlas and axis. I added concepts of basic technique involving the sacral distortions and the pelvic distortion. I added concepts of sacral occipital technique, looking at the relationship of the spinal cord and the occiput and the sacrum together. Collectively, I started looking at spinal cord tension patterns. I was familiar with the work of Reeves and the 5th cervical work that was done by Pierce and Stillwagon that talked about the meningeal involvement of the 5th cervical also affecting the spinal cord. With this, I developed the 5 phases of adverse spinal cord tension pattern and network. The 5 phases of stretching the spinal cord and the nerves, and since each of the nerves of the body go to all the cells of the body are literally stretched when tension occurs, altering the architecture of the cell membrane, which is the brain of the cell. I realized it's essential to address these 5 phases that distort the whole body through the spinal cord. And all of the work in network is addressing the vertebral-dural relationship to address these 5 phases. These 5 phases involve the area of the occiput of the sacrum, the area around C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, and 7, and the area of the sacrum and coccyx. The original intention of network was to find a way to help address those areas so the rest of the spine would also start self-regulating and correcting. Along the way, I realized the more that I could help the individual to improve the self-regulation of the spine, including being aware that as the spine unwound its tension, there would be a change in the emotional state. Emotional energy would be liberated. We started advancing network to realize that some other mechanisms had to be involved, and that is a respiratory wave. A wave that moves between the sacrum and the occiput, rocking each vertebra through its motion, helping take the sympathetic tension and tension patterns and bring it to a natural state, helping the person to have a greater sense of stability with where they're at, so they're ready to have more instability, which means more rapid change. Along the way, I started realizing I'm adjusting vertebral subluxations. And as long as I'm looking to correct a subluxation, I'm still perhaps limited in the care I'm providing, because I'm looking to correct a person to go back to a prior state as compared to enhancing the body's multiple intelligence and multiple self-regulatory mechanisms. So I asked, what is it I'm really looking to do? I'm looking to produce the least intervention to create the greatest change in the vertebral-dural relationships and therefore the whole spinal patterns. And I said, I'm looking to get access in the system. That's what all the techniques in chiropractic are doing. Looking to get access to the system so anything that's bound up, not available, could be made available. And when the energy is brought to the organizing wisdom, we have the chiropractic adjustment, we have health, we have healing, we have a better life expression. So I said, rather than going at the spinous process or the transverse process and using that as a bony lever to reorganize the articulation where the event really occurs, why not look at the area of the articulation in the vertebral-dural relationships and go to see that as an actual gateway, an access point into the system. Now, most chiropractors put force in the area under most tension, which is most fixated. And they apply it at the spinous or the transverse, hoping the force will be transmitted to all four articulations. I realized that when a subluxation occurs, at least two of the articulations are hooked into the defense or the trauma that actually produced the subluxation in the first place. So I said, I'd like to not put force into the area that's tied into defense. I like to put the force into the area that still has the most energy to change, the area that's most mellow, the area that creates the greatest impact. So I started developing this concept of spinal gateways over the vertebral-dural relationship. And as we apply adjustments at that specific spot, the force is transmitted through the subsystems of the spine, and the vertebra starts rocking on its own. It starts realigning. And eventually the areas of defense are no longer defense strategies. So you will learn the power of putting forces into the areas that are most receptive in the vertebral-dural relationship called spinal gateways, initiating the change in the spinal integrity subsystem, helping the body to organize at a higher level. And then came the wave. By 1987, we were able to produce a wave in people's spines. And that particular wave was an undulation that moved through the spine. People had very large changes in their awareness, you may call it consciousness. And at that time, often the spine improved, sometimes it didn't. Over the past 30 years, I learned to revise that spinal wave. People have gotten their masters and PhDs on studying the mathematics of that wave as a self-organizing system, basically a healing wave that actually is unique for each individual. A wave that when it moves to the spine actually helps shifts the spine and actually help your spine to learn with a fingerprint that is unique as you are. Over 3 decades, this wave that developed as people's spinal cord tensions resolved was evolved to what it is now. Several universities have studied the wave, and people have gotten their master's and PhD's degrees on studying the mathematics of how the human nervous system can organize at a higher level of coherency, a higher level of effectiveness, changes never seen before in the human species, based upon refining the chiropractic application. And I've modified what I've taught over the years based upon what the research has shown. What we can do in network is produce a wave that helps carry information about you from within you so you give an innate adjustment. As you apply a force, the wave creates the change. This wave is different in different levels of care. You're going to learn about developing the spinal integrity at this seminar, and a respiratory wave that brings the body to a new level of stability so it can deal with more change, and how that can start building this network wave. The wave is unique to the care we have. What is it like if you could actually help produce a self-organizing strategy for the individual so they can learn and their spine could self-adjust? That's what makes network so different. One, we're applying forces at a place the body can most use the force. We're never looking to move something that's stuck or locked. We're not looking to use more force when we're frustrated. We're looking instead to help the body's self-organizing intelligence to organize not only the conditions that produce the subluxation, to utilize the actual system to organize so it grows to a higher level. So a person's symptoms, so their conditions, so their maladies, their crises could be used as tools to bring their body and their life to a new level. That's a whole different approach. It's what people are hungry for. And it's what you'll be able to produce in care. Now, symptoms, people have symptoms. The purpose of a symptom is simple. It's to interrupt your life. All disease, I believe, is a cure. All disease is the body doing the best it can to drop the way it's functioning to a low level so it still could survive. So what we're doing in all techniques in chiropractic, and specifically targeted here, is to find the source of energy that's been disconnected or not available, bring it to the organizing wisdom, and allow the system to organize, to heal, and to self-adjust. So actually, it's time for the individual to have the opportunity to upgrade the human OS system. What would it be like if you still use the same system you used before when you had dial-up service, the internet? How often do you upgrade your cell phone? How often do you upgrade the applications, the hardware on your laptop or on your other devices? We're still working as humans with operating systems that are thousands of years old. And finally, through tools you learn in network, we have the opportunity to upgrade the human OS. So the situations and even the subluxation that exist at a lower level of organization, a lower level of effective use of energy, no longer are there. So now we could really have tools that you know will produce outrageous changes. And the claims you make in care are backed up by the data, by the research, and are backed up by the results you have. NSA ultimately is a result-based system. It's a results-based system where you get the results you promise, and the practice members talk about the results they get. As you help turn around the spine, it helps turn around their lives. Welcome to the Basic Seminar.